Just about That's exciting, right? Yeah.
You are on Monday.
Wow.
Are you on Monday? I'm on Monday. Are you on Monday? You might be.
Is it a shotgun mic for?
No, somehow it catches it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Works pretty well. Are you good to go?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
No, that's fine.
How's everything been going with the group? It seems to be pretty well.
Yes, they actually just did a haircut.
Approved.
So now, yeah. For I got one thing I want this to go.
Right.
So we have to keep on.
Right.
So after this week, and notice it's like in the house here, setting up, so you are interested in meeting.
Right.
Well, yeah. Yeah. So
No, I think it's great.
yeah. Oh, yeah. People come out.
Right. Right. And they're going to be in even better shape than
Yes.
leadership wise.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's still kind of a microcosm over there.
Right.
So they can come up here. That's
right.
That's what hopefully you can work on it. I really would like them to do is set a day to come.
Right. That's what I totally definitely do. Weekends are probably best, maybe for them and specifically.
And then also I want to work with just to get down.
Yeah, maybe they do a whole day.
Oh, that'd be actually a pretty good idea.
The whole. Yeah, that's true.
That's the
Yeah, for sure. You guys good? All right, everybody. I think we're just about ready to get started. Thanks for coming out. I know it's a busy time of the semester, and we're happy to have Joe Murgo here from WTAJ, the local CBS affiliate. And Joe is an alumnus of the department and a big Penn State fan. So thanks for making the trip.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you. It's been too long, and yeah, class of 1991, which now seems really long ago. Now that, especially when Paul retired, miss him. From when I was in school. But I'm very open to back and forth. One of the bad things about being on TV is you got to guess what people are interested in. And I can kind of see your faces. But if you have any questions while I go on, please let's do so. I'm very loose in this. I did some prep on some things, but some of this I'm just gonna totally wing it. But that's the nice thing, and we have a very interesting weather pattern. I don't know about you, but changes in the seasons always kind of just kick up my excitement about the weather a little bit. And with the first snowflakes coming, that's I think an exciting thing. And yes, I said coming, not potentially coming. I think there are going to be some, at least snowflakes mixed in. There was a couple of people who said they saw snowflakes mixed in Elk County yesterday. You can't ever argue with a report, but it just seemed like the profile was a little too warm for that yesterday, but it's getting cold. We do have a high, a 1031 high, that is now centering down to our south. When highs sink to the south, we try to warm up as well as we can here. State College altimeter with a westerly flow. On the return side of it, eyes are on two fronts that are off to our west. The first front now moving across Wisconsin and Iowa. More importantly, and the air mass behind there, and I know it's a little hard to see, but I'll describe. The air mass behind there is more of a continental polar kind of blends. It's not that cold of an air mass. So first front, I don't think really gives us that deep of cold air, but if you look behind the second front, temperatures now starting to drop into the teens and well below freezing here in daylight hours behind the second front. So you definitely have a much colder air mass. And I think that second front is a bit of a key in timing and getting excited for snowflakes to come on down our way. Satellite picture, we do have some fair weather cue that have been popping up for today. The high to the south, a lot of clear sky in the southeastern United States. We are getting some pop-up clouds ahead of the first fronts, and they're now moving on into Michigan and Illinois. And we are going to see, even though I was talking about my northwestern part of our viewing area, some showers cropping up even late today ahead of that. Second front is still well up into Canada, and again, that's the cold air. But neither of these fronts have a tremendous amount of moisture with them. Let me go ahead and show, I didn't load up ahead of time, radar. There's the showers again that I think could make it into our northwestern part of our viewing area, now moving on into Michigan. Not a lot of moisture to work with either of these fronts. I think we're going to be dealing with mostly more in the way of some pop-up convection, and just the big story is to change to colder air. All right, let me get my tabs going here, and let's go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and start off, with just as a general to summarize. I'm going to take a wide look at the GFS and move forward as we head on into 0Z this evening. You see it's starting to print out in northwestern Pennsylvania. There's a reason why I'm going with a bit of a wider view, because I want to talk about, this big high that's coming on down into the northern plains, which is by far eventually the coldest air mass of the season. The second front is hard to identify on here. I don't know if you've noticed, the students, a lot of times you're going to look on the models, and you're going to sit there and you're going to lose identity of some weak fronts over the Great Lakes, and often you're going to forecast a front moving to the East Coast quicker than it really should. And a lot of that has to do with when you get a westerly flow, and even here, as we're looking into tomorrow morning and tomorrow midday, tomorrow morning you're getting a little semblance of a trough already forming in eastern Pennsylvania and on into Maryland. And a lot of times you will try to rush a front through because you get a westerly flow, you get a downsloping flow across Pennsylvania, you get heating ahead because of that, ahead of the front, and when you raise the temperature, what does it do to your surface pressure? It lowers a little bit. So a lot of times when you get that westerly flow ahead of a front, you'll look at the models and you'll try to jump a front through a little bit quick. Tomorrow, I don't think the front is quite to the trough that you're starting to see here. It is still a good bit back to the west, and this is later on tonight. I think the front is slightly on the back side of that trough because of the compressional heating. Second front, you may lose also. Sometimes we'll lose identity, and you'll see these, what looks like a second front moving through the Great Lakes, but remember, the Great Lakes are still quite kind of warm, same thing. You'll often get what looks like a trough over the Great Lakes, and it may sit there and throw you off a little bit, and actually it can affect, there will be a trough because it is warmer. The lakes are a big heating source, and it can affect your forecasting for some lake effect as you move on into the season. So always keep that in mind, that you may lose them a little bit. But the fronts do move to the east. We do get the first front through. I do think what happens for tomorrow is the front pushes off to the east. We probably get a line of showers. Then, like just a couple of days ago, we get breaks of sun. The temperatures still try to rebound a good bit. And then we start getting the pop-up showers late in the day in northwestern Pennsylvania, and we get some showers moving through with that second front. And the GFS, yes, everyone's favorite. Now I'll start to, let me zoom in a little bit more here. Everyone's favorite color this time of the year is starting to show some blue here by Saturday morning. Now, remember I talked about the two fronts. The one thing that we have to, you know, and I like always posing in map sessions, posing questions, because, you know, the weather can always be extra analyzed, is just how cool is it by Saturday morning? I mean, we still have a westerly downsloping wind. While the GFS is putting some blue out there, early Saturday, midday Saturday, is the boundary layer just still too warm? You may be, you know, and what you may have is, you know, rain showers still that can mix with some snowflakes when you get a little extra burst, a little extra convection, a little extra lift. But the GFS shows this big blob Saturday afternoon. My gut feeling, and I mean, obviously the GFS is in high resolution, and I'll switch on over to another model here in a second, but I do think we're going to have more of a speckling on Saturday. Once we get the second front through, and again, it's hard to identify, but there is a second short wave that's going to move through. That's when, and that's when we get the core of the cold air. And the one thing that I've been trying to stress in my office is, you know, everyone wants to jump and rush the cold air in on Saturday. I think Sunday is the day. And now the models, and if you look back, I don't know about one run, because yeah, the one run's the same, but if you go back a couple of runs, Sunday, the models all of a sudden were trying to, oh yeah, high building it, it's going to clear on out, and we're just going to end up, you know, it'll start improving. I think not only do we have a northwesterly flow at the surface, and now the models are printing out all the way through Sunday. I think Sunday could be the coldest day. Temperatures struggling to get out of the low 40s, and that's where we get some snow and rain showers, is behind that second front as the core of the cold air moves in. And one of the things that you can look at, that's not what I want. Let me see. I may have to switch to different source here. I want to show you. One of the things you want to look at for when you are going to pull out of a lot of lake effect clouds and lake enhanced instability. Oops. Let me just get something up here, and I apologize for the delay, but as I'm talking, oh, come on. Oh, that's because I'm not Jude at Murgo. I'm just going to get to a different animator here if I can. Here we go. It's my holding place for some things. But let me just show you here on the GFS a different view, because I want to throw not just the surface. I want to throw in for Sunday. So, you know, why am I sitting there saying don't rush in clearing it out Sunday? Look at your 700 millibar flow. How about I put it full screen there for you? There you go. Look where your flow is still coming, and this is Sunday evening, even yet. Look at your 850 flow. Until we actually break that flow and that much cold air moving over the Great Lakes, I think the clouds are going to be tough to break. Which makes Sunday actually the interesting potential day of being a really cold day. And there probably still is going to be, you know, it may just be a little bit of sprinkle and flurry activity. But that's when the core of the cold air, it moves in. Now the question comes, when does the coldest night happen? Since I'm on this view. Saturday night we have another, as I was saying, that second front that's approaching. The highs are still a good bit off to the west. You still have a wind, a northwesterly component of the wind. Altoona State College, you're still going to get a downsloping wind. I don't think that's your cold night. I think your cold night happens when that high moves over. And hopefully at that point in time, you know, and I'm still a little bit nervous, how quick does it clear out Sunday night to Monday? You notice the 850 flow later Sunday, by Monday morning, later Sunday night to Monday starts bending a little bit. But how quick can we clear out? But because if we end up with a clear sky, light winds all of Sunday night, you know, we're not just talking about the first killing frost. I think that's a pretty likelihood, but that's when you will get temperatures down in the 20s. And again, I don't think it's Saturday night. I think it's Sunday night. And as this high sinks on through, there's Monday night. Interesting question to pose is D.C., Virginia, Maryland. That actually may be the a cold night with a clear sky and light winds. And then the high will sink farther to the south. And once again, next week, we have a warm-up. Flow around the high, front slowly moving across the middle of the nation. Temperatures are going to be rebounding a tremendous amount as we head on into next week. And then at that point in time, it will be an official Indian summer, because the unofficial definition is after you have the first killing frost. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the model soundings. And let me go 36 hours. And this is for Friday evening. Very unstable. Friday night football games are probably going to have some rain showers. Temperature still a good bit above freezing. Saturday evening, there's your zero line. Remember, I was sitting there saying, is the boundary layer too warm? And if you look, you do have a lot of clouds. The NAM still has temperatures at the surface at 5C. And I'm just wondering, other than the higher elevations, if it's just too warm for us to get snowflakes Saturday during the day. Now, Saturday night on it to Sunday, a different story. And even here, this is on the NAM. I may be crossing over. This is Saturday evening. I don't know why. I'm crossing over into two model runs. So, this is 12Z Saturday. I'm sorry. There's 12Z Saturday. There is Saturday evening. Again, your boundary's still pretty warm because I think the breeze is kicking up. And then, as we head on into Sunday morning, now look at your boundary. Here's your zero line. Now look at your boundary. You have a still decent deep moisture. And below freezing the whole way. That, I don't know if the surface temperature by 12Z Sunday morning is below the freezing mark. I think it's close. I don't know if it quite makes it there. But now you're talking about cold enough to support the first snowflakes of the season. But you see here on Sunday, a lot of clouds. Here's Sunday evening. That is going to be a sneaky cold day on Sunday, thanks to that aligned flow from the Great Lakes. Let's go ahead and let's take a look. That's just one opinion. Let's go ahead and the GFS it's reloading. I don't think I'm going to have much, but let's see here. This is the GFS, and this is for Saturday morning. Again, boundary not quite as warm as the NAM, but still a little warm, but definitely colder all the way through. So the GFS is a little more gung-ho on bringing that cold air in right away, but you got this big heating source, the Great Lakes, and often I've learned rushing snowflakes. I think snowflakes are coming, but rushing them is not always the smartest thing, except for the ridges. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the surface temperatures. And let me go even a little bit closer in. How about that? If it'll let me, come on back. There we go. One more back. And then I do want to hit, I don't want to go too long, but I do want to hit on one other thing about the weather, and something that's on everyone's mind. Do we see Pennsylvania, Harrisburg? Stop me if you run into it. There we go. There we go. Let's go ahead and take a look at 2-meter temperatures. And again, I'm leaning to that warmer solution on the NAM where it takes a while for the cold air to move on in. Take you to Friday morning, temperatures 40s, which looks pretty good. Friday evening, again, westerly flow downsloping. It's not going to be that bad of a day, especially in southeastern Pennsylvania. And, even a place like Altoona still may, during the day Friday, push the 60-degree mark. And then as we head on into Saturday evening, still holding in the 40s. So that's what I was talking about with the boundary layer of, keep an eye on that before you hype up the snowflakes too much. And again, that's personal opinion and things could change. But those that big heating area, which is the Great Lakes, is something to always keep an eye on. Any questions on the short range? I always hate talking for a long period of time. Yes?
Yeah, good point, because I was working evenings at the weather service last night. I think Sunday nights and cold nights.
Yeah.
Often southeast, like Hamilton, will be Monday night.
Yeah. That's what I think. In Philadelphia, D.C., Baltimore, that's where they get their, I think that's what
Hamilton's colder than Bradford.
It could be. Yeah, it could be. Anything else before? I'm going to hit on something else that I know always is on the topic of minds this time of the year. But now I don't know if you saw as I was driving down, though I didn't get to look too much. The NOAA put out their winter outlook and went pure with I'd say what would you call a stereotype El Nino forecast. They kind of did that last year some too. And it kind of, was very, last year they in the middle of the nation, especially north central United States, they ended up being too warm. But I thought I'd touch on it even before I knew it was coming out, but even before I knew we were going to have it in time. I wanted to touch a little bit about, some of the things to look at and winter forecast and talk a little bit about what's going on, El Nino. And some of the things I look at. I love delving in a long range forecasting, and I won't say I'm an expert, but I try to dabble, and I think a lot of the keys are in the ocean. And here is sea surface temperature anomalies. First of all, take it as you want. Wow, there is a lot of warm water across the globe. El Nino aside, there's a lot of warm water. All right, and I always look for that, and a lot of people have been talking about the whether this is going to be like last year a Modoki El Nino, which is more centered out in the Central Pacific than along the South American coastline. I've been watching this. To me, it looks like the core of the warmth still is all the way to the South American line. This is, and that's a significant thing. I think what I can't really get a feel on, I've never really experienced, and I'm trying to do some research, is there's a lot of warmth off the California coastline. The Gulf of Alaska is pretty warm. Interesting cold pool up over the North Atlantic, but we still have a lot of warmth, and warmth off the East Coast to me tells you a lot of your big storm potential. I mean, everyone here, hopefully everyone here has had some classes already and learned, one of the things that helps influence cyclone development, temperature gradient. The warmer it is off the East Coast, the better chance you have of larger, of more at least feedback and getting some larger cyclones. And there's a distinct correlation, and I'm still working on, because in the past couple of years off the New England coastline, the warm waters have been warmer, but it was cooler off the southeast coastline. And I made a kind of a bold statement last year that I thought storms along the East Coast would explode once they got off to New England. I'm going to say I got pretty lucky on that one, but that water temperatures is something I've been keeping an eye on, and I always like to wait till the end of hurricane season, because we actually still have another tropical system that may be developing in the Gulf of Mexico. There's still a lot of rainfall that's going to be hitting the southeastern United States, and believe it or not, the runoff is eventually going to be affecting the anomaly of the waters off the East Coast. So that's something I'm going to be keeping an eye on. But I thought I'd talk a little bit about El Nino. And let me call up, this is the 1997 El Nino, the Super El Nino. And I mean, obviously there is a lot more warmth along the southeastern coastline. I mean, off of the South American coastline. There's still warm water a little bit off the Gulf of Alaska, and there's warm water off of California. This is this year. Okay? There are, I think, some similarities. I have other El Nino years. In fact, let me show you. I found this website yesterday, and some of you may have already looked at it. It goes and breaks down all the El Ninos in the past years, and obviously this is, right now, technically just shy of the very strong 1.5. Or above 1.5 this year. But 97, 82, 83. And then we have the strong El Ninos of 72, 73, 65, 66, 57, 58. I looked at actually all the El Ninos, moderate and up, and we're going to talk a bit about it. But I wanted to share with you. So keep in mind that 82, 83. Let me go back to my PowerPoint here, because I did grab them. Now I just got to find it. 82, 83. There's 82. Now, 82, you can almost make an argument more of a Modoki El Nino, but there's still warm water off the coastline. Hey, how about this? We have our cold pool. Still a little warmth there, but not warmth off the California coastline. So I guess my point is, no two El Ninos are the same. Let's go to other El Ninos. All right, there's 87. Lot colder water off of in the northern Pacific. Still have the cold water in the North Atlantic. And, you know, there's this year again. There's last year at this time. So there's distinct differences. So if you want to sit there and say, oh, well, which El Nino is this the closest to? I sit there and I look and I kind of, you know, if I eyeball it, 82, not as strong as 97, but the pattern of the El Nino part. But what's different in 97, if you take a note, look at the warmth in the North Atlantic. So you know, just blanket, hey, El Nino is this, can't really go off of that. I went ahead, and let me try to blow this up some, and I have it on an Excel. I did this very quickly, so I apologize for no fanciness, but I went ahead and used SCASIS, and I went and looked at those years. The strong El Ninos, 97, 98, was our, this is off of State College, our second warmest winter on record. 82, 83, the 20th warmest. So when El Ninos are that strong, if you're going to roll the dice, 72, 73, 65, 66, and 57, 58 were all the other strong. 4 out of the 5 strong to very strong El Ninos brought warm winters here. So, you know, that's something to keep an eye on. Then I went down to the moderate. Now when you go to the moderate El Nino, how does it change? Okay, there we have 6 of them, 4 out of the 6 ranked in the colder. None of them extremely cold, but we're in the colder. So that was very interesting to see, and it's kind of eye-opening. You know, if you had to sit there and take a stake, which way would you lean for State College? You know, you got. I think there's a statistical correlation, not a big data set, but there's a statistical correlation. So let's go to snow. All right, this very strong El Ninos. 28th snowiest with 40.4 during the December to February, the winter time period, in 97 to 98. 82 to 83 was, you know, not too impressively least snowy. And kind of middle of the road for the strong El Ninos, the second grouping. But then when you get to the moderate El Ninos, different story. If you look, you know, you go from one of the snowiest to the least snowiest. I mean, I think at that point in time you lose a lot of confidence in a correlation with a moderate. But I think most people would agree it is the that we're kind of going to be in the very strong to strong category. You know, but what other things can factor into your winter? Well, you have to look at also the growth of the snowpack over the, I had it here, the growth of snowpack and the breeding ground of cold. And here's the northern hemisphere. We're behind last year, but still, you know, middle of the pack of the last 10 years of snowpack growth. And that is something I always keep an eye on, is snowpack growth. And, here locally and through the United States, what really sets the stage is how quick, if you get snow that lays down and you get a consistent snowpack, snow brings cold. So the timing of some snow events in the early winter can make a difference. You get a snowpack in the northern United States and you don't modify air before it moves in, you get a better chance of some cold. You get a little more feedback. But something to keep an eye on too. If it is going to be a typical El Nino winter and it is going to be that dry and mild, and there's a better correlation of dry and mild for the northwest and north central United States than it is for us. El Nino's correlation isn't that great. If it is going to be that dry and mild, how much of a snowpack will there be? That's something we'll have to keep an eye on. So that was some tidbits that I found in pondering yesterday before the 11 o'clock news. I wish after I started hitting on it, I wish I would have delved a little bit more. Any questions, comments on anything on that? Yeah.
It was at NC State in 82, 83, and it was a very stormy late, winter into spring, very stormy. Now I'm coming to storms across the southeast. 90 knot winds offshore.
Wow. And again, in 82, 83, let me go back to that. Here's 82, 83. Not tremendously warm, but you do have, off the southeast coastline, you do have some warmth. Not tremendous, but there was above average temperatures, and I think that feeds in. That could feed some storms. And popping out of the, I lived in Oklahoma at that time, so I really don't have many strong memories of the early 80s, but I heard there were a couple of good ones. And I think actually, you sit there and we really haven't had a big storm in a while. We really haven't. And just because you flip a coin and throw heads 5 times in a row, does not mean the next one's going to be tails. But eventually, and I think I showed that you can have above average snowfall even in a mild winter. Just may not stick around this long. Yeah.
All that warm water, especially not only off the East Coast but the North Pacific.
That's amazing. And hopefully that translates into more moisture. I mean, warmth should translate into more moisture for California when they do get systems. So that would be an important thing. Yeah.
Might it transfer to persistent ridge again?
It might. And I was kind of prepared, and I didn't throw that in too much. Last year, this year. But I have been watching, and and let me call it up here. I have been watching, and the forecast for the city is not going to be quite as warm. Close tucked into Alaska. The core of the warmth may be here. So if it's farther over, might that lock the ridge farther to the west and maybe help not lock it in? It's a different signature. It's definitely a different signature. And, we do have the potential, if this cool builds here, potential for a stronger jet to fire hose actually into Canada. When you get cold, the colder than usual water, under warmer than usual water, you actually have a potential for a stronger jet stream. And that's the one thing I'm watching is, do we have a situation that we could fire hose more into Western Canada, which then would still flood mild air into. It's a great question, and I'm beating my brain on it because I have to put a winter cast out next month. Yes, Dave.
It's interesting that the NACE is going really high confidence with the rest of this month, irrespective of this weekend, with above average temperatures for pretty much the entire 48 lower 48.
Yeah.
So you're not seeing that big trough, it's just warm, and about 70 to 80% confidence.
Yeah.
So it's 2 weeks, but it's not the season.
It's 2 weeks.
Kind of showing critical.
It-
You're not going to build a snowpack.
Exactly, and that's the one thing I'm wondering about. And a lot of people are really, because last year was a different El Nino. And last year, and people are just all of a sudden assuming that you can just break this El Nino mold all the time. I'm just wondering if it's too strong this year. And and these are relatively new thoughts. And let me just really quickly on Weather Bell call up the CFS. Let's go to submonthly. And let's go with sea surface temperatures. If I can get to them quickly. Wasn't planning on this, but I think it would. Where's sea level pressure? I go watch and see if I can find it over here. The sea surface temperatures are very different than last year. There we go. Okay. It's not keeping the persistent warmth as much there. This is for November. December. So is there more warmth on this side? January. I just don't see the same beast off of the Alaska, south of Alaska, as I did last year. It is keeping, and my hypothesis, and it shows a tiny bit, my hypothesis is we're going to see the East Coast water temperatures go down over the next several weeks, given the runoff of what's been going on down and what is going to be going on in the Gulf of Mexico and with the runoff from the southeastern United States. Any other comments?
Last question for Joe.
Yep.
Interesting how warm it is across the high latitude.
Yeah.
All the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, I'm always one of those, when you sit there in taking natural, unnatural out. This is unbelievable. That's a lot of warmth. And a lot of folks will talk about, okay, are we going to cycle back into, and I actually, Joe has already brought up this point too. Even if we do cycle back into a period like the late 1970s and people are talking about how it's, how brutal and cold it can get and everything like that, the oceans leading up to the late 1970s were not this warm. This is warm. This, to me, I'm looking at that going, there is a lot of heat in the oceans. There's a tremendous amount of heat in the oceans. And, I don't know how to read it. And yeah, there will be cycles and it will, we'll have cold, but that's a lot of heat in the oceans. And and I think right now you look at that and we don't have anything, and we have such a small data set when it comes to ocean temperatures. But you look at that and, in the scientific world, this is a neat little experiment to see how it's going to work out. Hate to put it that way, but it is. Okay? I know. Thanks.
Next speaker's going to be Paul.